Today we'll be working in my workbook called Nehemiah Part 1, which is Rebuilding the Wall. This is part 1 of 2 books on Nehemiah, and this one covers Nehemiah 1 through 17. In the timeline, we are on the third return of exiles under Nehemiah and to rebuild the wall. The restoration of Israel has to do with the end part of Daniel, and then Ezra, Esther, and then Nehemiah. And we are now in Nehemiah. Looking at the table of contents, we have completed chapter 1, where the problem is instigated. That is, Nehemiah hears that the walls need to be repaired in Jerusalem. He's a cupbearer at Artaxerxes' palace, and he desperately wants to go to fix the walls. And so he prays to God about it. Then in chapter 2, the situation exists where he is able to ask the king that he can go. And the king gives him approval along with letters and to both the Trans-Euphrates governors to allow him to pass, and Asaph, the timber protector in Lebanon, that he can get timbers for the walls. So now in chapter 3, we're going to talk about him inspecting the walls. Nehemiah inspects the walls on Nehemiah 2:11 through 18. After I went to Jerusalem, and after staying there 3 days, I set out during the night with a few others. I had not told anyone what God had put in my heart to do for Jerusalem. There were no mounts with me except the one I was riding on. So he went out during the middle of the night after 3 days, and he hasn't told anybody yet why he's there in Jerusalem. And he went out with a few others. He had the horse, they did not. And so they wanted to inspect the walls. How long would it have taken Nehemiah to get to Jerusalem? We're saying roughly 4 months. That's what Ezra took. And so we're assuming it's about the same. But we know that he was on horseback, so it could have been from 20 days to 4 months, depending on it. He would have been burdened with the timber he got. So anytime between those two. How long did he stay in Jerusalem before doing anything? 3 days. 3 days to get settled, to put things away, etc. We do not know what Nehemiah was doing during those 3 days. Which of the reasons below do you think are some possibilities? A, rested from a long trip. Yeah, definitely he could do that. B, checked out the city. Had never been there. Yeah, he might have done that. C, allowed his soldiers and horses time to rest. Absolutely, could have done that. D, find a place to store the timber. Yes, he could have done that. E, prayed for guidance. Definitely he could have done that. And then F, celebrated. After all, he's in Jerusalem. He didn't do that. After 3 days, what did he do? He went during the night to inspect the walls. According to scripture, what is technically wrong with the picture? According to scripture, the other people are not on horses as well. But I get the best picture I can to describe the story. Did he tell anyone what he was doing? No, he did not. By night, and this is the scripture continuing, by night I went out through the valley gate towards the Jackal Well and the Dung Gate, examining the walls of Jerusalem, which had been broken down, and its gates, which had been destroyed by fire. Okay, so we are going, what time of day did Nehemiah travel with this group? At night. First, he left the city from what gate? So from the Jackal Well, 1, he came out the Valley Gate. So he left the city from what gate? The Valley Gate. So we're going down this way. And the Valley Gate is probably named that because it overlooked the Hinnom Valley, one of the several valleys surrounding Jerusalem. What well did he travel towards? The Jackal Well. The Jackal Well may have been so named due to its shape or the presence of an image beside it of a dragon or wild beast. What gate was next to his travels? Gate was next in his travels, the Dung Gate. The Dung Gate was called that because it served as a dispatch point for the city's garbage. While he was traveling outside the wall, what was Nehemiah doing? He was examining the walls of Jerusalem. Who would burn down the walls? The Babylonians. 2 Chronicles 36:19. Then they, the Babylonians, burned the house of God and broke down the wall of Jerusalem and burned all its fortified buildings with fire and destroyed all its valuable articles. Okay. Nehemiah 2:14. Then I moved on toward the fountain gate and the king's pool, but there was not enough room for my mount to get through. So I went up the valley by night, examining the wall. Finally, I turned back and re-entered through the valley gate. So he's going up this way towards the water gate, but he's not able to get through. So then he comes back down and around back to the valley gate. What was the next gate he came to? It would have been the water gate. This gate was named as it was the primary access to the fountain, the Gihon spring, from which the city of Jerusalem received its supply of fresh, clean water. What structure did he go by next? The fountain gate is the fountain gate was the next gate he came to. So sorry. And then he goes by the king's pool. This pool is believed to be the upper pool referred to in the books of Kings, 2 Kings 18:17, built by King Hezekiah. What gate could he not get through? The water gate. Okay. This gate was named the Water Gate, probably due to its proximity to water sources. This gate was likely used to bring water libations into the temple. Nehemiah re-entered the city through what gate? He came back around and he re-entered again through the valley gate. The officials did not know where I'd gone or what I was doing, because I had said nothing to the Jews or the priests or nobles or the officials or any others who would be doing the work. In verse 16, he tells us again what he told us in verse 12. What was that? That he had not told anybody what he was doing. Now he lists specifically who he did not tell. Who does he list? The priests, nobles, officials, or any others that would be doing the work. Who in this group would be doing the work? All of them. So far, Nehemiah has heard God's call, prayed for 3 months, I believe. Let's take a look at my answers. Sorry. I believe it's prayed for 3 months. He prayed for 4 months. Okay. Traveled to Jerusalem, probably with a stopover in Lebanon to get timber, which took him between 20 days to 4 months. Waited for 3 days before saying anything to anyone about his mission. If you were called by God, would you be able to not say anything? That would be difficult because when you're called by God, you're excited. So that would be pretty difficult. And yet he did. Nehemiah 2:17. Then I said to them, you see the trouble we are in. Jerusalem lies in ruins, and its gates have been burned with fire. Come, let us rebuild the wall of Jerusalem, and we will no longer be in disgrace. I also told them about the gracious hand of my God on me and what the king had said to me. They replied, let's start rebuilding. So they began this good work. When he talks with the people, does he say, you see the trouble you are in, or we are in? And he says, we are in. When he suggests an action to take, does he say, you need to rebuild, I'm going to rebuild, or let us rebuild the walls? He says, let us rebuild the walls. According to Nehemiah, what is the reason why they needed to rebuild the walls? To remove the disgrace that they have. You would think the primary reason to rebuild the walls would be for protection. So why is it being no longer in disgrace a more important reason to the Jews? Because that spreads far and wide. And the protection, yes, they need protection, but technically, if they believe in God, they have the protection. So it's to remove the disgrace of the city. What did Nehemiah share with the people? He shared the fact that God was with him and that the king is in agreement to it. He had God's call, the king's approval, and material provided for the king. Did the people decide to rebuild the wall? Yep, they said, let's rebuild. So we've come to the end of this chapter, And let's see if we can get the crossword done. 4, the king's pool was probably built by King Hezekiah. Number 8, who had previously broken the walls? Babylonians. Number 9, the materials that the king had supplied was timber, right? Timber, yes. 10, after arriving, he waited 3 days before doing anything. 1 down. This gate is probably named that because it overlooks the Hinnom Valley. It's a valley gate. 2, what town is Nehemiah in? Jerusalem. 3, this gate is probably the primary access to the Gihon Spring, Watergate. 5, Nehemiah inspected the walls during the night. 6, the walls of Jerusalem had been torn down. 6, had been broken down, and the gates destroyed by fire. 7, Nehemiah said that they should rebuild the walls of Jerusalem so that they would no longer be in disgrace. So that's the end of this chapter. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.